सहनाववतु सहनौ भुनक्तु सह वीर्यङ्करवावहै तेजस्विनावधीतमस्तु मा विद्विषावहै। ॐ शान्ति शान्ति शान्तिः। गुरुर्ब्रह्मा गुरुर्विष्णुः गुरुर्देवो महेश्वरः गुरुरेव परं ब्रह्मा तस्मै श्री गुरवे नमः। तस्मै श्री गुरवे नमः। तपोभिक्षीण पापानां शान्तानां वीतरागिणां मुमुक्षूणामपेक्षोऽयम् आत्मबोधो विधीयते। श्लोक 29, पेज 77। स्वबोधे नान्यबोधेच्छा बोधरूपतयात्मनः। न दीपस्यान्यदीपेच्छा यथा स्वात्मप्रकाशने। There are these examples that we hear in the Vedantic discourse that look very similar. Snake on the rope, the lamp. Though the example is the same, the layers of subtlety vary. In the last example, in the last shloka, when we took the same example of the lamp illumining, there it was used to say that the rest of the material or the matter layers that are there around, as soon as there is a lamp lit, the rest of the material does not have a self-illumining aspect. Therefore, all of that which is perceived because of that illumination. Now here it is taken to the next step, a little more subtle than that. In that he says, svabodhe nānyabodhecchā. Here the word Ichcha is more from the perspective of requirement, not from the aspect of desire. So even in Guruji's word translation, he says, need for. There is no requirement. Svabodhe nānya na anya bodha ichcha. There is no need for any other means to know one's own true nature. Bodharūpatayātmanaḥ. Why is it that it doesn't require any other means? Because its very nature is to know. Its very nature is of knowledge. So the example taken is the lamp is lit. As soon as the lamp is lit, it starts illumining everything that is in its vicinity. In its proximity, all those things that which are there, they are illumined. But before it can illumine everything that which is in its vicinity, what is the first thing that it illumines? Its own presence. Its own presence is illumined, and that is the first thing that happens. Usually we don't pay attention to that. What is illumined by the lamp? We start enlisting all the things that can be seen. It is illumining its own presence first. And it does not require another source to illuminate. If you ask the child to go outside and check if the sun is there in the horizon, so it will be foolish to ask, can I take a torchlight, a flashlight? How would I know? It will be self-evident. It does not require any other source to illuminate. Now this sounds very simple. That is the style with which Bhagavan Adi Shankaracharya ji writes things. In the most casual study, it looks like very simple concept. Now when you start its application, that is where various flavors start outflowing. Now what happens in the actual processing of this? There is a vritti jnana because of which we perceive everything in this world. Vritti, thought, jnana of that vritti. Vritti jnana. That is illumined by the reflected conscious principle. Supposing I take this in my hand. Usually it is a blue color. वो भी है. I have these things in my hand. So the eyes perceive it. The data is taken in to the processing unit called the buddhi. Now the mind does a very beautiful job as well. It coordinates all the data points that are received by the mind in absolute synchronized experience. Otherwise it will be a chaos. Sometimes we used to get those DVDs. Usually the pirated DVDs had a problem. That the video will be going at one speed and the audio will be going just about a second or two delayed, or vice versa. When you watch such, after a few minutes, you feel very disoriented. You don't feel like continuing it. Why? There is a discoordination. There is no proper synchronization. Now imagine what the mind does. We keep complaining that my mind is the problem, my mind is the problem. The way it is to be functioning, if you analyze it, it is a wonder in itself. 5 different sense organs are perceiving the world of experience, simultaneously 5 inputs are going in. As soon as I pick one of these pens and I show it to you and ask, what is this? You have heard, you have seen. As soon as this hearing and seeing happens, it has to be synchronized. All at the same time. So understand it this way. 5 different data packages are going inside with micro nanosecond timestamp on it. It has to pull all this data, bundle it together, connect it together, and then there is a piece of thought synchronized. Even with this synchronized process that the mind can achieve, there is misunderstanding, lack of understanding, no understanding. It's quite a possibility. Of course, understanding can also happen. What if there was a time lag in synchronization? That you hear, but the processing is a second delayed, that it is not on the same timestamp. It will be like that session wherein, when a joke is said, I hear, from the speaker's perspective, I hear 3-4 different kinds of laugh. One, as I start the episode of that particular humorous thing, those who have already heard it, or those who were a part of it earlier, or those who know it, they start giggling already. Because they recognize it. Then there are those that almost can envision what the punchline is. Even before the punchline is delivered, they are already, in their own understanding, they have started giggling. Second wave. Third wave is the thunderous roar, wherein everybody starts to giggle, because now they all are in the same level of understanding. Oh! 3 layers done, 3 waves done. Now the 4th one is a delayed wisdom. After everybody laughs, then there is one specimen who laughs after everything has subsided. Why? It took them that while, whether it is language, whether it is the processing speed, whether it is the dawning of that understanding, and everybody turns to that fellow seeing, "Ab kai ko has raha miya?" And then looking at that fellow laughing little delayed, everybody else starts laughing again. That is the 5th wave. So I see this entire wave movement of at least 5 times. Wherein, so what is happening in there? Especially the 4th fellow who is laughing after everybody has finished laughing. There is a time lag. For whatever reasons. There is a 6th person. Turns to the other fellow and says, "Why are you all laughing?" And then you start explaining it to them, and then they start uncontrollably laughing. This is complete no understanding. Maybe because of the language or the words used. And when that language is understood, 6th 1 starts. So the perception, the understanding, and the reaction to that understanding, all of this is synchronized by the mind. Once the mind has processed it and submits this data to the buddhi, the buddhi then evaluates it. I have had experience of tens and millions and thousands of pens in my life. Different kinds, different varieties. It starts evaluating. कौन सा पेन है? By the shape and structure, it looks like a ball pen. Bingo. In the first attempt, we already realized its swarupa lakshana. That if this taken in the pocket, this will not stain the pocket because this is not a ink pen, fountain pen. Because fountain pen, because of the pressure that we are, not the internal pressure, the atmospheric pressure, it can feel that pressure and start oozing out. Swata siddha. Just because of the pressure. But this is unlike that. So this is not any other pen, this is a ballpoint pen. So much of detailed appreciation happens. So when that vritti is processed, it can be understood only when it is enlivened by the reflected conscious principle, and the reflected conscious principle gives two aspects of validity to this information. The first piece of information that it gets is asti. This thought exists. And then the second process is, it is known, bhati. It has been revealed. The reflected consciousness is borrowing this from the Chaitanya Tattva, the conscious principle, the source. Gurudev used to say, the witnessing consciousness. It has borrowed from there and thereby now witnesses this particular thought, and the thought is enlivened and known. These many steps occur in a fraction of a second to have this vritti jnana. Let that sink in. Now this is how we perceive the entire world. Even though we say it is reflexes, even the reflexes function this way only. But at a very fast pace. Because when you are driving on specifically Hyderabad roads, there are no signals given. You have to read the environment, anticipating the move. Micro movements. You have to now decipher that fellow's intent. Though he is on the extreme left, the traffic is flowing full speed on, but with the micro movements you decipher, kuch to gadbad hai. This fellow is on the extreme left, but then he is going to turn to the extreme right. Especially the bus. They give no signals. For which you have to also have the data, where are the bus stops. Because wherever the bus stops are, from the extreme right they go to the extreme left. As soon as they depart from that bus stop, they go from extreme left to the extreme right. Now in between you have to weave through. And in that weaving, you have to decide your margins. When I say your margin is not your physical sthula sharira margin. Your sthula sharira may squeeze through, but that which you are driving also has to squeeze through. There's so much of processing happening. Entire world is perceived only through this vritti jnana. Now the shift to Vedantic understanding is, instead of having any other vritti, here the vritti is Atma Jnana. And as soon as that Atma Jnana Vichara happens, that Atma Jnana Vichara is illumined. As soon as it is illumined, it is seen that it is pointing towards not the borrowed conscious illumining aspect of the reflected consciousness, but beyond it. That's about the sharpness of the buddhi, and up until this point, that is where its limitation starts. It can only point at that. It is pointing at what? Pointing at you, the source. A very lame example, when you stand in front of the mirror, what are you seeing? See, I got two answers. Whispers. I had to be sharp listener to gather that whispers. One said myself, the other said reflection. Both are true. Though you are seeing a reflection, the understanding is myself. Therefore, when you have to apply whatever you have to apply, whether it is powder, whether it is lipstick, whether it is chandan, whether it is kumkum, whether it is hair color, whether it is oil, whatever that you have to apply, is not on the reflection. Where do you apply? On the self. What are you perceiving? You are perceiving the reflection. But the understanding that is happening is not reflection. The understanding that is happening is the self. A very subtle variation here. We all do it, but we have never paid attention to it with this detail. Every pawn shop, every lift has mirrors. Why? If you are busy with yourself, you are not bored. If you are in the shop, you have placed your order and then you are busy. अपने में मशरूफ है. Because what you are seeing is a reflection, what you are understanding is the self. Similarly, this Atma Chaitanya Vritti Jnana, when it is being discussed and when it is grasped in its absoluteness, the understanding that is happening is that this is a pointer pointing towards something beyond that which is enlivening it. It is pointing it towards the source. And the moment that understanding happens, the processing stops. The purpose of processing has achieved its goal. The processing stops. Because now the attention is without any tension of processing. The attention is, oh, this is myself. It is like a a surprise gift in a gathering. There is this reveal, and then once you open it, you realize that it was meant not for anybody, but it was for you. When that dawns, that it is you. And in that grasp of that understanding, when it is pointed towards the source, that I am the source, for grasping it, you don't need another witness to witness it. Why? Because it is of svātmaprakāśane. It is of the nature of self-illumination. Illumining is its very nature. This is called niṣidhya. What do we sit on the seat of meditation and get to is to this point. There are various layers or levels of silence that we experience. If we are really very subtle in our observation and grasp. The first layer of silence is when the mind quietens. Then the buddhi's subtlety is revealed. The buddhi is silent. Then the absorption of me in my own self without any other pointer required. But then that not being experienced. In Gurudev's own words, whether you read meditation and life. In that book, he says that when you come to this point, wherein you now are absorbed in your own true nature, there is absolute silence. That is why it is called not just Shanti, it is called Prashanti. And when you reach to this state, when 23 and a half hours of vigilant life lived, in a half an hour of meditation practiced, even if a second of this experience, consider that you have progressed. Because the moment that happens, because up until then, all the validation process is only through buddhi. This is something very new. And our identity to that buddhi again kicks in. And then we start the Triputi again. Ore, that experience was so good. Done. Meditation has a block now. Because that has become a bhoga vastu. Now to detach from that process and again refocus, it is like the flow chart. Again go back to that point of convergence, get to that pointer, redivert your attention to the pointed and drop the processing. Whether self is or has always been illumining. All that which has been illumined is only because of this source. Svātmaprakāśane. Now, Bhagavan Adi Shankaracharya ji shifts his attention. How does one reach to this point? See, if there is a a very beautiful thing explained, but how to get there is not given. Then the immediate question that anybody would raise is, Swamiji, all this is fine, but how do I reach there? So that is given in the next shloka. Repeat after me. Niṣidhya nikhilopādhīnneti netīti vākyataḥ vidyādaikyaṃ mahāvākyairjīvātmaparamātmanoḥ. The culmination in any satsanga is truly a satsanga if it leads to this mahāvākya upadesha, which he has already done in the last shloka. You are that. How will I know? Svātmaprakāśane. It is of the nature of illumination, and you don't require any other source because you stand illumining. That has been your nature. You are that. Tat tvam asi. There are these 4 Mahāvākya Sutras taken from 4 aspects or 4 divisions of Vedic literature. And the first one is called Upadesha Vakya. The rest 3 are the subtleties of Anubhava Vakya. So the first one is Tattvamasi. The second one is Ayam Atma Brahma. Third is Prajnanam Brahma. And the last one is Aham Brahmasmi. Very beautiful, subtle, very sukshma this is. Progression in from the Upadesha Vakya to the Anubhava Vakya. If you have sent a text message saying food is on the table, what is the best response that you would expect from your child?
Thank you.
That is a very disappointing statement. Thank you. Nowadays only emoticons for everything. One namaskar, one thumbs up, one namaskar. Done. The best response would be tasty, finished, thank you. All 3 in that sequence is called Anubhava Vakya. What is the Adesha Vakya? The food is on the table. When you say thank you, it is like, yes, recognize the fact that there is food on the table. But that is not the purpose of the Adesha. Even if there were no Adesha, you would see the food. I said, okay, theek hai. Once that Adesha Vakya is correctly processed, then starts the Anubhava to transcend from Dvaita to Advaita. How so? You open the lid You smell the aroma, immediately wash your hands and sit down, and then the food is consumed. From Dvaita Bhavana, it has become Advaita Anubhava. It has now become one with you. Then when the text comes, tasty, finished, thank you. It shows that the Anubhava is ascertained. Therefore, these Mahavakyas are not for the transitory sadhana called japa. In japa, that vritti has to be repeated several times to come to that one single thought retention process. Here it is not to be used for japa. And the Guru gives the Adesha Vakya, Tattvamasi, you sit down. Tattvamasi, Tattvamasi, Tattvamasi. Okay, there should be some Om added. Okay, I'll add Om. Om Tattvamasi, Om Tattvamasi. This is not for a japa process. It is a pointer. And the pointer has to be understood. And the processing of understanding has to be continuously done until it hits. It hits that which is pointed is me, the self. In understanding this and in trying to explain this, we have the entire gamut of the various schools of sampradayas. One says that the very statement of Tattvamasi proves that there is more than one element. Therefore, I don't need to explain further. It only shows that it is Dvaita. There is Tat and there is Tvam. There is that and there is this. So logical, right? From the immediate study, it appears that there are two. And the description and the definitions of both are completely different. Tat is something which is very subtle. Tvam is something which is from wherever we are positioned in our identification, in defining what I am. All of that included, I consider I am. So the definition and the description of I is completely different from the definition and description of Tat. There are two. Therefore they say that at the most that you can be is to find some method of connection, and in that connection you can call that as the greatest achievement of your sadhana. Dasya bhava, sakhya bhava, various steps. And the phala of it, salokya, you will reach to that loka. And if your effort has been really good, then you might attain sarupya, look-alike. And in your seva bhava, in your surrenderance, you have been absolutely right. Then you get samipya. closest proximity. And then Sayujya. Yujya, you are a part of that which you have been longing for. That is the max that you can get. And that is the very definition of Tattvamasi. Sounds very logical. But then, the brilliance of Adi Shankaracharya ji kicks in. And the example that he often quotes in the entire Upanishadic Bhashya, for which he is recognized as the Bhashyakara, he is titled as Bhashyakara. There, the example that he takes is Soyam Devadattaha. He is that very Devadatta. To your children or to your spouse, you have been telling about your friend, how you both grew up in a village, in a very poor background. You at least had a house, but your friend did not even have a house. They used to live in a thatched, rented property. And you have heard this story several times. And then you tell that group of gathering of your family, today there is a surprise. And you go to a house, the house is so elaborate that it looks like a palace. The Pujari's daughter had just wandered and knocked the door and walked in. And a child just walking in and said, "Who are you?" Her answer was amusing. She didn't respond as to who she is. She comes inside, looks around and says, "ये तो महल लगता है. This looks like a palace." So you go to that palace-like dwelling, and then you introduce, he is that Devadatta. That Devadatta which you have always described is from a poor background. Description is different, definition is different. Today what you see is in complete opulence. There is all kind of Aishwarya that you can think of. That definition is different, this definition is different, but in both places, the person has been the same. You have only heard, and that which you have heard now has been seen and experienced. Though what you have heard earlier is different and what you are seeing now is different, but yet you make the connection. Tat, that which has been described. This, that which you are seeing. Asi, the oneness is established. Tat tvam asi. Similarly, how is the Jivatma? Entire Arati is a description of Jivatma. मैं मूरख खल कामी, मैं सेवक तुम स्वामी, तन मन धन, that is what defines me. But then I am doing this act. Sab kuch hai tera, tera tujhko arpan, kya lage mera. And if the Bhagavan were to appear and say, Chhod ja. Thank you for reminding. Drop everything and now you may exit. And then he'll say, ye cheating hai. And poor Bhagavan has heard us repeat that several times. Bhagavan bhi bore ho gaya hoga. Whenever he hears, Mamu rakh kal kaami. कितने बार बोलोगे? How many times will you repeat the same sentence again and again and again? आगे भी बढ़ोगे? Will you move forward from there? See, imagine many of your doctors here, imagine you are the doctor and the patient comes for the first time and describes pain here, pain there, pain everywhere. Oh doctor, anyatha sharanam nasti tvameva sharanam mama. Second or third round of visit and repeats the same sentence again and again. कहीं तो कुछ तो गड़बड़ है ना. Something is wrong somewhere. We keep coming to Bhagavan's presence, we keep telling the same sentence again and again and again. And Bhagavan is also like, तुमको तुम्हारी दीनता और मूर्खता में बहुत घमंड है. That you are not dropping it. So the jiva is very limited. Alpagnya, alpavyapi, alpashaktiman. That Ishvara is sarvavyapi, sarvagnya, sarvashaktiman. How can there even be a comparison between these two? This is completely a different entity, that is completely a different entity. And then you say, this very principle is there in everything, everyone. You mean even my neighbor? Anything is okay, but my neighbor cannot be Paramatma. How can everything and everyone be the same? Maybe with little effort I can come to understand that I am Paramatma, not that fellow. They look distinctly separate. Therefore, the earlier statements of processing wherein that which we have identified with has been described, enumerated elaborately. The three shariras, what are they? What is their functioning? And why is it that I am not those three shariras? Sthula sharira, sukshma sharira, karana sharira. But then there is not a complete coverage in that. Like the cell phone network coverage that you see, the bars. It's partially covered. A complete coverage comes when all these layers are further described into Panchakosha Viveka. Annamaya, Pranamaya, Manomaya, Vijnanamaya, Anandamaya, all of these are nothing but layers of matter only. Therefore, none of these layers matter. It's after all matter, therefore it doesn't matter. What matters? That enlivening principle. You mean this Jivatma? Jivatma is the one that is identified with all these. The source of that Jivatma. Similarly, that Tadpada is called Ishvara only when he is in relationship, in context with the Jagat and this Jiva in that Jagat. When do you call somebody an umpire? There has to be the Jiva called the players, fielders, batsmen. There is an umpire required. There has to be a Jagat, spectators. Whether in physical or in wherever, whichever media is projecting it. There are those crucial moments wherein everybody looks at that umpire. How was that? Pretty bad. Usually the appeals are also made when you obviously know that it is a definite, wide ball. But the fellow in the wicket-keeper gully, slip, second slip, third slip, everybody shouts. As though they can now confuse the Ishvara, the umpire there. But then he spreads his wings. Wish I had longer hands, because that which you just bowled is not just wide, super extra wide. How much ever you may appeal. The umpire is valid only when there is the game, there are the players, and there is the Jagat. The moment this is done, there is no more umpire. That which is the substratum of that Ishvara is this Chaitanya Tattva. Gurudev sometimes becomes very mathematical in his analysis. A equals C, B equals C, therefore C is the reality. Jiva, the substratum is Chaitanya Tattva. Ishvara, the substratum is that Chaitanya Tattva. And I am that when realized. The Purna Anubhava Vakya is Aham Brahmasmi. This entire process of negation, netīti vākyataḥ, is to detach from here and to reattach to that which is my essential nature. Niṣidhya nikhilopādhīnneti, peeling off layer by layer the sense of attachment to those layers by netīti vākyataḥ. Just by saying no, it doesn't work. It has to be supported by logic. Maybe to a certain age, the child will listen to you when you look at the child and very clearly that I mean no other nonsense. No means no. The child also looks at you and says, okay, this is seeming to be serious. Okay, no means no. But then they transcend that age. When you say no, in all their brilliant exuberance of intellectual revolt, they come up with one question. Why not? And then they ask that why not? They are so confident in their intellectual capacity. I nailed it. Why not? Your no has not had the effect now. Now that is when that who you were dealing as a Shishu now has to be dealt with in a different attitude. Now you have to sit him down. You have to explain all the steps possible as to why you said no and whether saying that no was substantial enough or not. You have to give a logical approach. My father was of a different make. He would say once no. And after that, mother was of a little delicate nature. She said, you. She would say, stop. Go. Try it. So I was told that the iron used for making the cloth crisp is not to be meddled with. Because every day in the morning, just before going to office, he would iron his pant and shirt and wear them. Mother was busy in kitchen, father finished his job, put on his clothes, he left. I must have been maybe about 4.5, not more than that. The little fellow me, it was on the table, tried reaching it, could not reach it, pulled the chair, struggled to climb on the chair. From the chair I climbed onto the table, nicely sat, fully established. Now I have to become, sthitaha is done, prajnaha has to happen. I picked that and placed it in my lap. Then Brahmananda revealed. Ha-woo, ha-woo, ha-woo. Mother came running. Father stood there watching. And from then on, for almost next 2-3 years, any indiscipline, they just, even a cold iron, kavala, chup, svātmaprakāśane. A simple no will not suffice. The logic has to support it. Until when? Until the point wherein I have the experience that yes, it is certainly without any doubt limited and limited only. Identifying with all these only extends my suffering because of that limitation. Therefore, to delimit myself is the only way. Once that clarity is born, a conviction is sustained. And wherever the conviction takes a deep root, otherwise we'll be scared of this world. I don't know when things will limit me. But the courage is born because of that conviction that though I may go out and play around with it, I know it cannot limit me because I have the profound understanding that I am not it. I cannot be limited by it. Born out of this understanding is a sense of independence, meaning you don't depend on it anymore. is the clear, fearless interaction with the world. Then comes to the seat of meditation, because I have now layer by layer understood and peeled it off, peeled the sense of attachment to those layers, and that which is pointed is realized as my very true nature. The subtlety of this netīti is further expanded in the next sloka. We will see it tomorrow. Om sarve bhavantu sukhinah, sarve santu niramayaः, sarve bhadrani pashyantu, ma kaschid dukkha bhag bhavet, asato ma sadgamaya, tamaso ma jyotirgamaya, mrityorma amritangamaya. Om Purnamadah Purnamidam Purnat Purnamudachyate Purnasya Purnamadaya Purnamevavasishyate. Om Shant Shant Shanti. Hari Om Shri Gurubhyo Namaha. Hari Om.